Today, on today's second day of a history class, I would cover up the remaining textual topics of the class 11 first chapter, and that is called From the Beginning of Time. And these are the following topics to be covered up by me. Early humans from trees to caves and open-air sites, advantages of dwelling in caves, positive feedback mechanism, benefits of bipedalism, the story of modern human beings' origin, different ways of obtaining food by early humans, types of tools, development of language, emergence of spoken language, uses of language, and lastly, the hunter-gatherer societies from the present to the past. So before I move on to the first topic, I have two introductory questions to all my students, and those are: just recall the changes occurred in terms of constructing your house since from your childhood till date and find out its different features. My next question to my students is, just remember the changes that you have observed while shifting your residence from one place to another till date and find out its different features. Now here I would begin the first topic. Early humans from trees to caves and open-air sites. You must know that the early humans had shifted their places of residence from trees to caves and open-air sites. The archaeologists do have a number of clear evidences in order to restudy the places of residence of the early humans. So before I move on to the first point, let me first explain this word, okay? Artifacts. What are artifacts? So artifacts are objects which are made by human beings. They are man-made objects. Artifacts are usually made by the usage of humans' thinking skill, intelligence, and humans' power. And this term refers to a wide range of things: tools, paintings, sculptures, pottery, and even the clothing comes under artifacts. Got it? So the archaeologists first mentioned that early humans had dwelt on the branches of the tree. The first point is dealt with. The early humans had dwelt on the branches of the tree. And this is evident from this diagram. Here you can have a look at this diagram, okay? Whether it would be, hominids, other primates, leopards, owls, all these have taken shelter on the branches of the tree. So in the input process, you would find that the carnivores entered that area with carrying bones and feeding themselves under the tree, whereas the hominids entered that area with carrying bones, stones under the tree, and began making stone tools, such as by cutting, breaking, other than undertaking feeding and chewing activities. Even non-hominid primates have shown moving things around at that area. Whereas in the exit process, the scavengers had been left the place by removing bones. The occurrence of flood has washed things into that area. In such, crocodiles were shown feeding aside, whereas hominids began removing stones and bones. The archaeologists mentioned that hominids such as Homo habilis had most of the time consumed the food where they had found it and slept at different places, and most of the time they had been dwelt on the branches of the trees. So how do we reconstruct the patterns of early humans' residence? How do we restudy the patterns of early humans' residence? So we can reconstruct, the patterns of early humans' residence. First point is dealt with by plotting the distribution of artifacts. By finding out the distribution of artifacts, we could restudy the places of residence or the patterns of early humans' residence. For instance, thousands of flake tools and hand axes have been excavated at Kilombe and Olorgesailie, Kenya, having been dated between 1700,000 and 500,000 years ago. So it seems that some places where the food resources are abundantly available are visited repeatedly by the early humans. So in such areas, people would likely to leave behind, the traces of their activities and their presence, including a number of artifacts. So the deposited artifacts would accumulate it at a particular place. So while digging out those mounds, archaeologists could find out number of artifacts. Through those artifacts, they could restudy the places of residence of early humans. Whereas the places where the early humans had been less visited would have very few artifacts. And those artifacts might have been scattered all over the area. Got it? And more so between 400,000 and 125,000 years ago, caves and open air sites had started to be used by early humans. There is an evidence for this site comes from sites in Europe in the Lazaret caves in southeastern France. It was particularly served as a shelter for the early humans, and it was built against the cave wall. Inside it, they were found 2 hearths and evidence of innumerable food sources such as fruits, nuts, seeds, bird eggs, vegetables, and some other freshwater fish. And this is the site from the opening of the cave entrance. Here you can also have a glimpse of Lazaret cave in France. Hut at Terra Amata, which lies in southern France. So, other than that, at another site called Terra Amata, which is situated on the coast of southern France, there is a flimsy shelters with roofs of wood and grasses were built for seasonal visits by early humans. So in this diagram, a large stone boulders were placed particularly to support the sides of the hut. And the small stones scattered on the floors were the places where the early humans made their stone tools, whereas the black spot marked with an arrow clearly indicates a hearth used by early humans. Other than that, pieces of baked clay and burnt bone along with stone tools dated between 1.4 and 1 million years ago have been found at Chisowanja, Kenya and Swatrans, which lies in South Africa. Now the question comes here, were these the result of a natural bushfire or volcanic eruption, or were they had produced through the deliberate or controlled use of fire? So these are the questions to be answered either by historians or archaeologists. And the next topic is based on advantages of dwelling in caves. What are the uses of living in caves? Okay, so the dwelling in caves had protected the early humans from the attack of some other predators, hunters. Okay, and next, the dwelling in caves has proved advantageous for the early humans, as now they could protect themselves from the danger of wild animals. Other than that, living in caves had provided them a natural, safe home from the occurrence of severe extreme and colds. More so, the early humans could carry out innumerable activities within the space of caves, such as making of stone tools, such as cave paintings, dealing with the hunting scenes. And next I would move on to the positive feedback mechanism. So positive feedback mechanism is a mechanism which accelerates or improves the output created by a stimulus that had been activated previously. So input here means something which you put in, something which you put in, and that something may be your energy, your time, your knowledge or intelligence, or some other information that you have gathered from your friends or through internet sources. Got it? And this is the actual process to be undertaken by you. Got it? By taking this process as a tool making, in order to carry out this tool making process, what all you required is what? A number of inputs. Inputs. So that inputs may be the increase in the brain size, your flexible hands, got it? The upright walking. So these are the inputs which would help in undertaking this process. Got it? Input di khatsu yaga yonegi di tabuki di chawa di yabu chiture. Chawa di khatsu yabu chitunagi di tabu sanga yore lor. Tak khandrashi inagi chawa khandrashi inagi peshana chigla teni chungorwa. Di tabu chini chawa chig che shagyo di peshana lagja sur. Lagja suni lagja chasubo chig suetona lagja suetube shukin sangbu digi ya chawa shimba chig kyardo ya suetue. Yana tanda de lagja suere lagja chasubo chig suetur. Lagja chasubo di suetube shukingi ya khari chare ya lagba nyimbu chae sobada ngeni sue shagyo denzo ya chasubo suetue da denda shukinte. Dila ani sigur. Or positive feedback mechanism is a system wherein a particular activity has influenced in carrying out some other activity in a positive manner. Peshana, for example, the increase in size and capacity of brain has influenced in carrying out tool making process. In return, the tool making process has influence in what? Strengthening the size of brain and capacity of brain. And here also the increase in size and capacity of brain has influence in what? Carrying out a proper visual surveillance, long distance walking while foraging and hunting. And this process has further influenced in carrying out the proper upright walking. The proper upright walking has influenced in what? Developing the hands fit for using tools and carrying infants and objects. So likewise, this feature, okay, by taking this as the first feature, hands fit for using tools and carrying infants objects. So this process has enabled in carrying out what? The upright walking. The upright walking process has enabled in carrying out what? The proper visual surveillance, long distance walking while foraging and hunting, and this process has further enabled in developing the increase in size and capacity of the brain. Got it? So in this process, they see, for example, the upright walking has also enabled in what? Carrying out tool making process. Got it? So each and every activity has influence in carrying out some other activity in a more positive manner. And inputs that helped in tool making: increase in brain size and capacity of the brain, the upright walking, visual surveillance, long distance walking while foraging and hunting, hands free for using tools and carrying of objects. So these are the inputs as a whole which has helped in what? The tool making process. And the next, the processes that were strengthened by tool making are the upright walking, the increase in brain size and capacity of brain, the visual surveillance, long distance walking while foraging and hunting. So these are the processes or activities which were strengthened by the tool making process. For example, bipedalism, walking on 2 feet. Walking on 2 feet has enabled hands to be freed, particularly for carrying objects or infants. So when the hands have become freed and used more and more, the upright walking gradually become more efficient. Got it? The freeing of hands had also minimized the energy consumption while walking as compared to that of the movement of quadrupeds. So there is an indirect evidence of bipedalism as early as 3.6 million years ago, which was recovered from the fossilized hominid footprints at Laetoli, which lies in Tanzania. So a direct evidence of fossil limb bones of bipedalism was recovered from Hadar, which lies in Ethiopia. The Laetoli in Tanzania, footprints of hominids provided striking evidence of bipedalism. So these are the footprints of hominids. What are the benefits of bipedalism? What are the benefits of bipedalism? Bipedalism means walking on 2 feet. Okay, so bipedalism has enabled early humans to observe objects from far off distance, and it also helps themselves in protecting from the attack of animals, and it has also become easier for the early humans to differentiate themselves from the others. The others means the other quadrupeds. A walking upright had been freed their 2 arms to carry out different required tasks, and the long distance walking has become more efficient for biped than for quadruped. And lastly, the next energy has begun to be consumed while walking as compared to the movement of the quadruped. So by looking at the diagram, which has shown the positive feedback mechanism, can you list the inputs that went into tool making? What were the processes that were strengthened by tool making? The earliest fossils of modern humans. So these are the earliest fossils of modern humans discovered. Places where indicates the country or place where the earliest fossils of modern humans have discovered. When means a period or time during which these earliest fossils of modern humans were discovered. Got it? For example, Ethiopia. At Ethiopia, when was the earliest fossil found? 195,000 to 160,000 years ago. And in South Africa, 120,000 to 50,000 years ago. And next, Morocco, 70,000 to 50,000 years ago. Israel, Australia, Borneo, and France. So here you could observe that some of the earliest fossils of modern humans have been discovered in Africa. So thus it has raised the question based on the center of the modern human origin, such as was there a single center of the modern human origin, or were there several centers of modern human origin? So on the basis of this question, the issue of place of modern human origin was hotly debated by scholars. So finally, two different views have been explained. The first point is dealt with the regional continuity model. The regional continuity model supports what? With multiple regions of origin. So according to this model, the ancient Homo sapiens in different regions gradually originated at different rates into modern human beings. And hence the variations in the first appearance of modern humans was observed in different parts of the world. So the differences in terms of habits, nature, and the features of Homo sapiens, the differences in the habits, nature, and the features of Homo sapiens in the different regions indicate that the Homo sapiens didn't appear at the same time and at one place. So on the basis of archaeological evidence, archaeologists have classified the humans as Java man, Peking man, Homo erectus man, Homo heidelbergensis man. So the archaeological evidences also found in France, Mexico, Rhodesia indicate that modern man originated in different regions at different times. And the next model is named as the replacement model. The replacement model supports the complete replacement everywhere of older forms of humans with modern humans. And there is the evidence of the genetic and anatomical. Anatomical means the scientific study which deals with the structure of animal bodies. So the anatomical homogeneity of modern humans and the earliest fossils of modern humans found from Omo in Ethiopia also supports the view that modern man came into existence in only one part of the world rather than different parts of the world. The great similarity which has found amongst the modern humans may be due to their descent from a population that once originated in a single region of Africa. So the physical differences which has observed among the modern humans mainly due to the adaptations led by them to the particular region of settlement. The replacement model here indicates what the origin of modern human being in Africa, and the regional continuity model indicates what the origin of modern human being in different parts of the world, whether it would be Africa, Europe or Asia. And this map indicates what the multi-regional model. So according to this, some of the proponents also supports what? That the different races like Africans, Europeans and Asians have been evolved separately. And next topic is based on different ways of obtaining food by early humans. What are the different ways of obtaining food by early humans? So the early humans would have obtained food through a number of different ways, and the first point is dealt with gathering process. Gathering means the process of collecting the plant food such as seeds, nuts, berries, fruits and tubers. So there has very rare evidence regarding the proper practice of gathering. Though there has a fair amount of fossilized bones, but fossilized plant remains quite rare to be found by archaeologists. So the only other method of obtaining information about plant consumption would know if plant remains accidentally burnt, and this would result in carbonization, in which organic matter has been preserved for a very long period of time. So of late, archaeologists have not found evidence of the carbonized seeds for the early period. So this picture indicates the gathering forest products by the early humans. And the second feature is based on scavenging. So scholars have mentioned that the early hominids might have scavenged or foraged for meat and marrow from the carcasses. Carcasses means dead bodies of animals that were died naturally or had been killed by some other hunters, predators. So it is probable that small mammals such as rodents, birds, along with their eggs, reptiles and even insects were eaten by the early hominids. So this picture shows the scavenging for meat and marrow of carcasses by early humans. And the next point is dealt with hunting process. So hunting process, it has perhaps practiced late about 500,000 years ago. So the earliest clear evidence of the deliberate plant hunting and butchery of large mammals originates from two sites. Boxgrove in southern England 500,000 years ago, Scaningen in Germany 400,000 years ago. So from about 35,000 years ago, there has an evidence of plant hunting, particularly evident from European sites. Sites such as Dolní Věstonice in Czech Republic, which is situated near to a river, seems to have been chosen deliberately by the early people. So it clearly indicates that the early humans knew the movement of animals during different seasons, and they also knew the means of killing animals at very short period of time. So large number of migratory animals such as reindeer and horse probably might have been crossed the river during different seasons, and thus they are killed on a large scale. The preference of such sites clearly indicates that the early humans knew about the movement of various kinds of animals as well as the various means of killing large scale of animals quickly. Here you can have the location of Dolny westernis. Dolny westernis, and this one is Terra amata, boxgrub. And the third process is dealt with fishing. Fishing is evident from the discovery of fish bones at different sites. So scholars, they are unaware whether the roles of gathering, scavenging, hunting and fishing activities in the past were equally undertaken by both man or woman. Making tools by early humans. The process of making tools is not just limited to humans. Even the animals and birds knew how to make or use tools in according to their needs. Got it? So while searching for food, some chimpanzees used tools that they had been made by themselves, and there were certain anatomical and neurological adaptations which had led to the skilled use of hands, perhaps due to the important roles of tools in human lives which had pushed them to prepare stone tools. Making tools by early humans. So the process of making tools is not just limited to humans. Even animals and birds knew how to make or use tools in according to their needs. Got it? While searching for food, some chimpanzees used tools that they had been made by themselves, and there were certain anatomical and neurological adaptations which had led to the skilled use of hands, and perhaps due to the important role of tools in human lives which had been made them to prepare tools. So the ways in which humans used and made tools often required what? Greater memory and complex organizational skills which were both present in chimpanzees. So the earliest evidence for making and using of stone tools originates from sites in Ethiopia and Kenya. So it is probable that the earliest stone makers were the Australopithecus. It is also probable that the stone tool makers were both man and woman. Women might have made tools and used tools to obtain food for themselves as well as to sustain their children after weaning. Weaning lana dirta thanda amigi ta pula ta omate zamshani sete gozudwa. And next, the improvements in techniques for killings were evident from 35,000 years ago from the appearance of new kinds of tools such as spear throwers, the bow and arrow. So thus food could be stored for future consumption as the meat obtained by early humans was processed by removing the bone, skin followed by drying, smoking and storage. Making tools by early humans. So the early humans had invented sewing needles, stone sewing needle, bone sewing needles. Got it? And the earliest evidence for sewn clothing comes from about 21,000 years ago. So the sewing needles are important in helping early humans stitch what? More fitted clothing made of animal furs and skins to protect themselves from the elements, particularly during the Ice Age. So the introduction of punch blade technique was also led to produce a small chisel tools, and it could further used to engrave what? Bone, antler, ivory or wood materials. The tool making process by early humans. The punch blade technique. Technique means method. Yeah, it's a particular method dealt with producing blade, stone blade with help of a punch. So in this process, the top of a, by taking this as a pebble, okay. So in the first process, the top of a large pebble is hereby removed by using a hammer stone. So the, okay, because the top of a large pebble is usually not required, it is used for eroded one. So this produces flat surface called the striking platform. So in the second process, I have what? Formed the striking platform, and this is the struck using a hammer. By taking this as a striking platform, by using a hammer and a punch made of bone or antler, and this further leads to what? Production of blades that can be used as knives, that can be modified to serve as chisels, buriens, which could be used to engrave bone, ivory and wood. So this is an example of engraving on bone. You can also have what? A notice of a drawing made on this, okay, bone. You can also have a notice of a particular drawing made on this bone. These are animal bone needles, okay, found from South Africa 60,000 years ago. And tools used by early man can be categorized into three types. Hand axes, and these were particularly used for pouncing purpose. Got it? So in the beginning they were used without a handle, but with time the wooden handle was attached to it, and it was made possible to use them with much force. And next, choppers were made of what? Heavy stones worked to a sharp edge in one direction only, and were most probably used for what? Chopping meat purpose. And next, flake implements. So these were particularly used as knives, scrapers for finer works. And these tools are often found lying along the terraces of rivers or huts or caves, wherever the early man had been lived or roamed in search of food or wild animals. And these tools made by him served innumerable purposes, such as skinning of dead animal, cutting their fleshes. So about 35,000 years ago, new kinds of tools such as spear thrower, bow and arrow came into existence. And these are the diagrams based on the tools, various tools. A hand axe, chopper, cleaver, arrowhead, birch scraper, spear thrower. And next, development of language. From all living beings, it is humans alone who has language, and there are several views based on the language development. The hominid language consisted mainly gestures, moving of your head to or fro, or moving of your body to or fro, or hand movement. And the spoken language was preceded by vocal and non-verbal communications such as singing or humming. Humming means singing with closed lips. Got it? So human speech had perhaps emerged with calls like the ones that had been practiced among primates. So in the beginning, a small number of speech sounds were possessed by humans. Got it? And with time, it has been developed into language. When did spoken language emerge? So it might have been developed as early as 2 million years ago. It has also mentioned that the brain of Homo habilis had carried certain features which had allowed them to speak. The emergence of vocal tract, when was it occurred? So it was occurred around 200,000 years ago, and it had particularly linked with whom? The modern humans. So the emergence of vocal tract has also suggested that the language developed around the same time as art, around 40,000 to 35,000 years ago. So the development of spoken language has been seen as closely linked with the art, since both are considered as the modes for communication. And next, the use of language helped in hunting activities of human beings in numerous ways. So what are the uses of language? Which has helped in carrying out hunting activities of human beings. Now, the early humans are in a position of what? Organizing or managing hunting expeditions by themselves. They are now more fit to exchange their ideas about the different animals to be hunted in different regions. They could now discuss about the nature and behavior of each and every kind of animals. And the early humans could also discuss regarding the various types of tools to be used for hunting purpose. And next, language helped in constructing shelters for early humans in the following ways. So how did the language help in constructing shelters for early humans? Okay, the question is like that. Now the early humans could discuss, regarding the secure and safe places for the construction of their shelters. The early humans could gather information about the various kinds of materials to be used for constructing their shelters, and they could also gather information, resources, the information about the resources which are available in and around their surroundings can be easily obtained. And next, they were now in a position to discuss the various means to protect their shelters in severe conditions. The early humans also enabled to discuss the means to protect their shelters, particularly in the occurrence of severe conditions. The other modes of communication which are used for various activities are the signs, symbols, cave paintings, engraving on the wall and on the ceilings of caves. Now you must know the meaning of ethnography before we move on to another topic. Ethnography means what? The study of contemporary ethnic groups, and it mainly includes an examination of their modes of livelihood, technology, gender roles, regions, political institutions and social customs. ta di nanglo la ethnography le di nanglo la lobjong khari jangai la na ani Quran su gi Tokyo sedang da namgyundu gi dedang da ani nangamu mi gi lagja khang pyeju chigi yume da demin gi pomoniga gi lega minjawa 강 nangi yume 포기 강 nangi yume 모기 강 nangi yume 아니 최다 저와요기 야 레규딘데 비기 유메 아니 시슈마기 야 고티 교술단 징경나다다 아니 치소기 룩스 민자와 강레드에 디톨라 록종 장아이딜라 ethnography and it is also the scientific description of the different human races. And Hadza, so Hadza is a small group of hunters and gatherers, and this group still exists in Africa. Hunter-gatherer societies from the present to the past. So there are two opposing views on whether the information about the living hunter-gatherer societies could be used in order to understand past hunter-gatherer societies or not. So on the one side there are scholars who have totally agreed about the application of the specific data collected directly from the present hunter-gatherer societies in order to explain the archaeological remains of the past. For example, some archaeologists have mentioned that the hominid sites which has dated to 2 million years ago along the border of Lake Turkana was once a dry season camps of early humans, and such a kind of practice has been observed among the present Hadza and Kungsang. So whether it would be Hadza or Kungsang, both are hunter-gatherer societies which still exist in Africa. And this is the scene of two Hadza men returned from their hunt. So, whereas on the other hand, there are scholars who have totally disagreed about the use of ethnographic data in order to understand the past societies. Got it? They said so because both of the features possessed by the present hunter-gatherer societies and the past hunter-gatherer societies are opposed to each other. Got it? For example, the present hunter-gatherer societies engage in several other economic activities, such as engaging in exchange of forest products, trade in minor forest produce, or working as paid laborers other than carrying out hunting and gathering activities. So the present hunter-gatherer societies are totally different in all senses by geographically, politically, economically and socially. So the division of labor in terms of food procurement is difficult to make any kind of opinion about the past. So here you would find what the tremendous variation amongst the living hunter-gatherer societies. So here you would find the tremendous variation amongst living hunter-gatherer societies, and these are based on many features. The first point is dealt with the relative importance of hunting and gathering process. Okay, so there are a number of the present hunter-gatherer societies. Okay, so here you would find the tremendous variation amongst the living hunter-gatherer societies, and these are based on many issues such as the relative importance of hunting and gathering. Okay, so the present hunter-gatherer societies may pay more importance to hunting and gathering process, or may not pay more importance to hunting or gathering process because some present hunter-gatherer societies engage in carrying out economic activities, just merely engage in these two activities. And next, the group size. The size of the group of hunter-gatherer societies may differ from one to another. It may be small or large. Yeah, it is dependent about their geographical location or whatever. And next, the movement from one place to another. Got it? The movement which is being made by the present hunter-gatherer societies from one place to another may be different from one to another, may be different from each other. At present, you know, hunter-gatherer societies face immense problems such as making movement from one place to another due to the creation of political boundaries, right? And the different ways of living of the present hunter-gatherers, the different ways of living of the present hunter-gatherers may differ from one to another. And next, about the division of labor in terms of food procurement, whether there has been an equal role for both man or woman, or whether there has been an unequal role for both man or woman. So these features may differ from one to another. So these are the topics that you have learned so far, and these are several questions to be done by my students. Describe in detail about the patterns of early humans' residence by providing suitable examples. You are hereby requested to gather an oral information from your parents regarding the origin of Tibetans on the basis of Tibetan tradition. Can you list some inputs that went into tool making process with adding some appropriate examples? Distinguish between two models based on the origin of modern human beings. How did the early humans obtain their food? What do you think are the advantages or disadvantages of using ethnographic accounts to reconstruct the lives of the earliest peoples? Thank you for your mindful attention and patience.